For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ronnie Sanders. We're joined today, as always, by former Auburn coach Terry Bowden, and today we have a special guest, former Auburn quarterback and Auburn assistant coach Dameyune Craig. Dameyune?
How you doing, guys? Glad to be on the show.
Damien, good to have you on the show with us. And since Jimbo isn't around, I can say you're the best quarterback, greatest quarterback I've ever had, Dameyune Craig. Now, if he's here, he's the best quarterback under 5'8" that I've ever had.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. That was an inside joke, guys. I love it.
It's good to have you on the show. And again, one of Auburn's greatest quarterbacks. And again, still holds the single season passing record, 3,277 in one season. And back when they didn't count bowls and there weren't 15 or 16 games in a season. We had a lot of success up there, Damien, and thank you for being on our show. And again, to our fans, Dameyune Craig played at Auburn 94 through 97, redshirted in 93, his first year, but played 94 through 97. For all of you Auburn fans that are old enough to remember us, we're getting old, so we know you're getting old. If you were there to catch us at Auburn, but those were some great years during those years. And I just want to add that during that time, Damien was all SEC second team while he was at Auburn, and also still carries numerous records: single season passing, single game average for one season while he was there. And also, a lot of people don't realize MVP in the Independence Bowl, Peach Bowl, and the Senior Bowl while he was there. And Damien, had a lot of great years. We had a good time during those 90s, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It's so funny, Coach. I'm so glad you're back around. You just don't understand. I'm getting a little emotional, right?
Yeah.
Because I never forget, being recruited by you. And I tell everybody the story. I was an Auburn fan growing up and came to camp in the 11th grade, actually, after I won coming off a state championship. I didn't receive a lot of love at the time. I wasn't as good as I thought I was at the time, but we won a state championship. Long story short, I had some feelings after that camp, and I was like, man, I'm never going back to Auburn. I was so mad. And when you guys came in, you made me a priority, and I never forget. I was so big on looking people in the eyes and just believing what they say through their eyes, not their words. And man, you had those eyes, man, look like a tiger. You got those funny colored eyes, and you had this intense look on your face, and you was like, we're going to win. And you said, you asked me what I wanted, told you, and you said by the time you become a senior, we're going to run the same offense my dad running with Charlie Ward. And he said, I'm going to teach you this game and help you prolong your career and whatever you want to do. And, I believe you. And I never forget, I tell the story to my players now because I'm coaching, And, we talk about a DNA. People don't give you credit for having this toughness about you. You're the most physical coach I ever played for. And so I get there the first day because we didn't have to report early. So the freshmen come in during the summer, and you had the running test, I think 1.5 miles, and then we had the 40 test or some other test. And then I went in that weight room, and we had James Bostic, arms big as my head, inclining 275. You had Tony Richardson, Willie Whitehead, all these guys in the weight room. And I looked around and I saw how they practiced the first time Tony touched the ball. He went like 80 yards and came back, did it again. I said to myself, Coach, I would never play here. I said, I'd never play here. I said, I ain't good enough. I ain't tough enough. I ain't strong enough. And I said, they only won 4 games the year before. So it was an awakening for me. And it was like, it's a level that I had to reach. And that's why, that's what I talk about now. When you start talking about Auburn football, it's the DNA that we have, a lunch pail, bring your lunch pail, your hard hat, and the toughness that you have to have to be a part of that. And you just turned this thing around and went undefeated in the first season and won 20 straight games, which was unbelievable. You know, I was so happy to be a part of that. And the things that I learned from Auburn University and playing under you, I carried throughout life. And it has made me a successful young man.
Well, you mentioned something that I think was so true about you and the rest of that team, the lunch pail, the blue collar, hardworking mentality. Auburn's had some great years. Bo Jackson was the center of everything in '83, and Cam Newton during his era. And I'm not saying you or one person on our team was at that level, but it was the team, the blue collar, hardworking team. Not just my new coaches, but I mean, we take Wayne Hall and Rodney and some of those
Joe
hard
Witt,
nosed guys.
yeah.
Coach Witt,
Kurt
and
Crane,
Kurt Crane was meaner than I mean, he was a tough.
Minute
Then
in the
you throw
Snake.
in Trickett,
Oh, it was crazy. It was
and it's
crazy,
funny.
coach.
And it's funny you mentioned Tony Richardson having to run 80 yards to a touchdown. Rodney Allison may be the toughest of them all. I don't know.
Yeah,
He would make the run. I don't care if we were on our own 20 during practice. Every back had to sprint till they got to the opposite goal line. And that
coach.
whether it was
Yeah,
10 yards or 80 yards. And I said, holy cow, we're going to kill those guys. And whatever we did worked. I know that
it worked,
much.
coach. And you forgetting about one other person, your own brother.
Oh, I know. He was. Hey, Dave, we had Frank Sanders on the show last week. And I
Yeah,
remember, I didn't mention this to Frank, but the first time, Frank was he got vocal a little bit with the previous group, and so people were saying, was Frank going to join in? But Tommy was doing what Tommy Bowden does. He was driving, he was slapping and hitting. He probably would get in trouble coaching today like
yeah,
he did then.
exactly.
And Frank Sanders was mad, and he started to walk off the field. This was the first preseason. He started to walk off the field, and I can't. And Tommy said, "Don't you leave now." And Frank turned around and came back, and he became a leader of the
Great
team. He
player.
became a great player, one of the finest citizen Auburn players that I've ever been around. But it was that kind of mentality, and you know what? I'm so pleased. I don't. And we met Coach Golish last couple of weeks ago when we went into Auburn. But I do believe he understands. Although he's not been in the SEC, he was at Tennessee for a while as
Hmm.
an assistant. He understands the mentality of what you got to do to be successful at Auburn in the SEC and Auburn, which is you got to be physical and tough.
And I know I don't know if Frank mentioned this, but I'll tell y'all this story. And it's so funny, Coach. We talking now because you're hearing it from your player's perspective. It was two things I still talk about to create this physical and mental toughness. The first thing was spring practices. Ronnie, I think we were like live 14 out of 15 practices, and the quarterbacks were live. Like
Yeah.
it didn't matter. So I tore my rotator cuff, 3 out of 4 muscles, right? And me and Patrick battling it out, and I'm just on a tear now. And I tear it. And that was the only practice I ever missed. And I couldn't raise my arm up. And so right before the spring game, Dr. Andrews come in and he said, "Well, we're gonna look at your shoulder." And I said, "Doc, what happens if you find something?" He said, "Well, you can't play in the game Saturday." And it's Thursday, but mind you. I said, "I'll be back." I said, "I'm going to eat dinner." Never came back. Got in the game, won MVP, threw for 170, rushed for 100. They took me to Birmingham, had surgery immediately. 3 out of 4. But I was live through the spring with a torn rotator cuff. And the second thing, coach, what we call our bubble workouts. And I didn't tell you this, but when we played, Jimbo knows the story. We played LSU my senior year. It
Right.
was
And
always a tough
90,
game.
right.
97. And we get down, and it's hot, man. Death Valley, night game. And I looked around the guys, everybody, man, we just wore out. And that night, the defense couldn't stop them from running the ball. So the first time I get in the huddle, coach, I tell everybody in the huddle, I look at them. I say, "Guys, listen, we're going to win this game. We're driving down. We're going to score." And I told them this. I said, "If we can make it through the bubble, we can make it through anything." And we went down and scored. So at that moment, I wasn't thinking about the moment going 80. I was putting it in mind like we went through the toughest thing we can ever go through was the bubble. And we made it out, and we're going to make it out this game. And we went down and scored. But you created that atmosphere, and you created the mentality through the way we practices, the discipline that you created on the team, and the respect that we had for one another. And it was a close knit group. And a matter of fact, most of the guys on the team we have group threads, whether it's this group, that group, that group. I got a group thread with about 5 or 6 guys.
Right.
Everybody communicates, still talk, and it's just the camaraderie, the family, the brotherhood that you created, and that we still have.
Damien, talk a little bit about that '97 season. There was a lot of adversity. Robert Baker at the beginning in spring, if I remember right, and then
Yeah.
we lose and people kind of writing us off, and then all of a sudden we go beat Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, we lost. We actually lost a lot more. We lost, I think, 2 or 3 centers before the season started. James Kiger, and then we had to go through. I think T.J. Donegan was a guard, and he was never played center, and he would jam my fingers up every single day and snap it over my head and the ground. And Jimbo would tell me, "Hey, Damien, if something wrong with the snap, it's always your fault. It's always your fault. You never." I said, "Yes, sir." So the first game, you go watch this game. We playing Virginia on the road.
Right.
Coach Bowden don't duck smoke, right? So we on the road, opening up on a Thursday night in Virginia, right?
All right.
And the first snap, he snapped the ball through my legs. It didn't touch my hands. It traveled maybe 15 yards, man. And I jump on top of we on like the 5-yard line. So I get in the huddle. I look at him. I say, man, you got it out your system. That's on me, and it won't happen again. You just saw the weight of the world lifted off him. It was like, and then we ended up winning that game, man. So, and then we lost Kiger, we lost Robert. Robert was a big time player. We had some injuries throughout the season. I think Goodson separated his shoulder. He would have had easily 1,000 yards. They had two 900-yard receivers that year, and we were down. Coach, I don't know if you remember this. Man, we were down at the end of the season. We were playing with Hicks Poor starting, who was a
Oh, yeah.
walk-on, great player though, earned his scholarship. And God, dog, can't think his name. Number 15. He ended up playing a lot in the Iron Bowl, and he threw him a ball, and the ball tipped off his pads, and I kicked him out the game. Like, you can't come back out here. You ain't ready for this game. Joe was like, we ain't got nobody else to play. I said, well, you ain't playing him. I'm sorry. He said, we gotta win this game. But we started off hot, had some adversity, and I felt bad because Coach did believe in me, and everybody said, well, the run game, the run game, the run game. Man, we were so efficient and so good at what we were doing, and he put it on me, put it on my shoulders. I was happy to do that. Did in high school. I think we played Mississippi State the year before. I threw for 394. The next year, and this is where it happened. We were backed up. They rushed like 2 guys. I throw
Right.
like a 60-yard ball down the middle of the field, and I get to the line of scrimmage and say, "Man, it's gonna be like last year." When I raised my leg up for the ball to come, all of a sudden everybody just jumped in everybody's face and they overloaded. They were bringing 4 guys to the side, and I had a long game that game. And so, but we bounced back against Georgia, who
Hmm.
was ranked top 5 in the nation. We weren't supposed to win. Coach said we're gonna run the ball. We're gonna take some off his shoulders. Went in and ran the ball. Then we had to beat Alabama to get in, and LSU had to lose to Mississippi State, which they did. We got in the championship game, and in the championship game, I rolled my ankle in the second quarter, and I thought I broke it. I heard it pop. And we get in there at halftime, and Coach comes to me and said, "How you doing?" I was like, "Coach, I don't know. I think it's broke, but I'm still gonna play." He said, "Okay." And so he went and talked to the team, and they took out a needle about 6 feet long that looked like, and shot me up, and we came out. But we came up short that game, and I think about that almost every day. We had some drops that game, and missed a field goal before halftime, and missed a tackle on the hitch. We call it hitch tackle here. Coach Dale McGee here with me. We
Hmm.
work that drill almost every day. And that would have been a legacy for me because I at least wanted to win a championship before I left, because I know we were on our best teams. In my opinion, we was on probation, so we didn't have a chance to compete for it. So, but I had a great time that year, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And all the memories and the friendships and the lessons that I learned throughout my 5 years at Auburn, I still carry with me because it's my home base. I still have homes there. I'm retired there, and I just love it there. And like I said, Coach, I'm just so happy that you're back around
Yeah.
because it was a void in that. It's a void that wasn't connected for a time over those 5 years that they're bringing back, and those teams were relevant in what we're doing, and they exemplify Auburn just as much as any other team in the history of Auburn University.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to be around the 2013 team. I was coaching, and to be honest with you, Coach, when I was there that year coming in, um, I was leaning on some of the things that I learned from '93 with that team. Not as a player, but not as a coach, but I was leaning on as a player, the things that we went through, the things that you taught, and the
Right.
values and the toughness and what it take to be a winner at Auburn University. And we was able to flip that season like we did at '93, do some miraculous things.
You know what I remember? I'll go back to '97 because we were talking about '97, which was, I think, probably we overachieved as much. We did more with what we had that year than '93 or '94, where we had better teams. But '97, when we just lost by 1 point, 30-29 to Tennessee, and I thought you outplayed Peyton Manning in that championship game. The team did. The team had a great game. We just fell short at the end. But I got to go back. You mentioned the LSU game, which was LSU back then was always a critical early season game. Whoever won that game was most likely going to challenge Alabama for the West Division champion. That was kind of the way it went back then. There was no Texas or A&M in the conference at that time, or Missouri in our division. So we had to, but it was still probably and has been the toughest division of any league in SEC in college football. But I will say the LSU, we beat them in Baton Rouge, but what you didn't mention is that we were down, and with about 3 minutes left, you led the offense 80 yards down the field. And I'll never forget, we ran Rusty Williams off tackle, and he scored at the end of the game to win the game in Baton Rouge. We played well in Baton Rouge. We were 2-1 during my time. And if you remember, Pat Nix was still starting the year we lost. And that was a year somebody blew a whistle. Somebody blew a whistle in the stadium, and you coached at LSU. They probably still do that over there. But our whole line stopped blocking, and Nix took a safety, if you remember, and we ended up losing about 2 or 3 points in that ball game. In that one, but you know something, I don't know if you remember this, but we had lost to Florida in middle of the season, and Mississippi State was coming up. And I've said again, we did not have a good running attack at that point. We had just weren't running as well as we needed to. We were in the 4 wideouts a lot, but still we needed to run more. But at some point in time, I try to tell people, folks, you better win ball games, whether you're better at passing or you're better at running. Sometimes you have to solve those problems in the spring. You can't solve them in the middle of a game. But I remember we lost to Florida, and we were playing Mississippi State at home. And we were an off week, and then Georgia and Alabama.
Yes, sir.
And Georgia was, like you said, top 5. So going into Mississippi State, they were criticizing pretty good because we weren't running great that year. I had Fred Beasley at fullback. Could have been a very powerful tailback. I can second guess myself there, but I don't know. He made a great fullback in the NFL. But I don't know if you remember going into Mississippi State, I said, listen, we have not run the ball well. I said, we got to win this game. We got to win and then win 2 more games after this, after an off week. I said, we're going to throw it every down. We're going to throw it every down. And I don't know if you remember this. I said, I'm going to get you the Heisman. This game, we're going to win the Heisman this game. And we threw it a bunch. I mean,
52 times, I think.
Yeah, Joe Lee Dunn was the defensive coordinator, and we had thrown pretty well against him. He played a lot of man-free, loose coverage. And I said, we're going to pass it every down and convince our next team, Georgia, that we can't run, that we have no running attack. And we would have, I don't know if you remember, we've turned the ball over about 5 times inside the 20 going in. Yeah. We just had we turned it over and lost to Mississippi State. And it was turnover. And, buddy, they got on us pretty hard. But after that game, and I guess as a coach, I would say, well, I made a calculated decision that I wanted to find a way to beat Mississippi State and beat Georgia down the road by playing a different style. So if you remember, in our off week, we put, who was the backup tight end? We put him in a wing back. You had
McLeod, and then
McLeod was our back. Yeah. We put him on the wing, and we put Beasley in. Kevin McLeod, and put Beasley in one back. And we had an entire different running attack. I don't know where I saw it.
DeMontre Carter. We were in 22 personnel.
22 personnel in a wing. And we ran all over Georgia. We ran all over them and jumped them really bad, and was able to then get back in the hunt.
Yes, sir.
And then when Alabama, we kicked a field goal as time ran out to
Mm-hmm.
beat Alabama. And I mean, one of the you talk about having a tight sphincter. You've been a coach a long time, and you've worked with some of the. You've worked with Saban. You work with me. You work with Jimbo. You work with
Yeah.
Gus Malzahn. You've had a few people you've worked with, and Les Miles. I think you're with Les a little
Yeah.
bit too. But that game against Alabama, they were not very good. They had won 3 or 4 games. Mike Dubose was having a tough year. And, as the Iron Bowl usually goes, we're losing in the end of the game. And I'll never forget, it was, we had like a 4th and 5 or something, or 4th and 6 with about 3.5
I
minutes
remember.
left. And I decided to punt the football. It was maybe 4th and 7. It was one of those
Yeah.
low
Yeah. Yeah.
percentage,
Yeah.
but the fans, here's what you're thinking as a coach. I could punt this ball, and there's a chance we don't get it back.
Yeah.
And and I've got to take that. I've got to blame on that one. And I said I got to do it. The odds of us getting the first down and driving down, I still think we need to punt. So I punted the ball on 3.5 minutes left, and you could hear a pin drop except for the booze, because it was one of those tough decisions. But then if you, and I know you remember, because they threw a swing pass to Sissom. What is his name? Sissom,
Mm-hmm.
the
It's
running
just,
back. And people say, what a terrible call. It really was a pretty good call. He caught the ball, had a chance, but Martavius Houston hit him and he fumbled, and you got the ball back. I want to say you completed one pass, or you got the ball down a little
yeah.
bit closer, and gave us a chance. And at the last seconds of the game, we kicked a field goal to win the game. But it's funny how those games go. There's a lot of decisions you make, as you know,
Yeah.
during your years coaching. It can go one way or the other, and it decides the outcome of the game.
Coach, I'm gonna tell you that game from my perspective. All
Yeah,
right. So we lost the year before, right? Because
right.
they was big. We came back. We lost the game in the last second. So I grew up watching this game. Like I said, I grew up an Auburn Tiger fan, and I think it was the 3rd time we ever played in Jordan here, right?
Right.
So I'm going to the game now, Coach. I don't ever feel pressure. Never in my life played a
Yeah.
football game where I felt pressure. Only time. So I'm here like, man, I don't want to be the first quarterback to lose to Jordan Hare. And I didn't beat him my junior year. So I'm like, if I don't win this game, I
Yeah.
literally, Coach, I'm not lying. I have to leave the state. Like I can't come back. And I'm being dead serious right now. So when you wanted to punt, because the play before we called volunteer.
Yeah.
So it was double ends. And I got pressure. So I was falling back and I could have threw it higher, but I couldn't see the backside safety. So I tried to give it in a safe place, and the ball was short to Carson. It was wide open. And when you sent out that punt team, I did not want to leave the field. I'm shaking my head.
Yeah.
No, you send them out. So I get to the sideline, coach, and I'm distraught. I didn't even see the last play because I did turn my back to the field because I'm just thinking about, like, I really got to leave. I got to go. And I caught flack about that because it's like he turned his back. But when I heard the crowd go crazy, so you know who the coordinator was? The coordinator was what's his name? Coach that won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady.
Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians was the
Yeah.
coordinator, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they called a play, and then you asked what hash Holmes wanted the ball on. He said the left hash. All right.
Yep.
So now you said we're going to call Mustang, right? Mustang was the rollout
Yeah.
hitch flag,
Right.
but I'm going to my left. So Jimbo used to always tell me, he said, in pressure situations, revert back to fundamentals, right?
Right.
So I look up now, Ronnie. This is funny. This is a great story. Now, this is why you got to have these podcasts, right? So I look up. You got Fernando Bryan on one side, and you got Deshae Townsend on the other side. Those are the two corners. Fernando was
Yeah.
a first round pick. Fernando was a first round pick. Deshae played 13 years for the Steelers. I got Hicks Poor out there running the hitch, right? Going to my left. So I said, I got to get the ball, step open, get my shoulders turned, get downhill, throw it to the outside number, drive, right? Man, I got this ball, open up, rolled out, get downhill, throw it through his outside shoulder. And I swear, man, they was about 6 inches from knocking that ball out. He caught it, rolled all out to the sideline,
Right.
came in, we kicked the field goal, won the game. But it's so funny, like when you're playing and you can remember these moments because it all goes back to coaches and your values, what you've learned. and not to panic in that situation, and what we've been taught as a team, and instilling these things to go out and win these type of games. Now, Coach, you say they weren't good that year, but that was, besides Florida, that was the best defense we played, because they
Yeah, no,
still had all those.
they didn't have a good record. You're right.
Yeah, they didn't have a good
They
record.
were
They didn't
dadgum
have but
good
they had a
football
great
team.
defense.
Yeah.
Rudd was over there, Fernando Bryant,
Yeah.
Shea Townsend. Oh man, they had some guys over there, and it was
Right.
always going to be a battle. So it didn't matter about the record, but it was just so much built up on that because we lost the year before. In the magnitude of the game, only been a third time in the history of the Iron Bowl played at Jordan Hare, and won 17-16. Never forget that. Matter of fact, I think they opened a restaurant downtown. It's called 1716, and my plaque is in front of that restaurant. Um, so it was just that's an honor for me when they put my name downtown. So you going back to these things, there's so many. And other thing, Coach, you didn't mention. You talk about the West, but this people fail to remember this. At the time, we had to play Florida, Georgia every year, right?
Right.
On top of the West teams, and then our out of conference teams that year, right, was UCF with Dante Culpepper,
Right.
La Tech with Tim Rattay,
Uh-huh.
with that great receiver in Virginia. At the end of the season, Coach, we had the hardest ranked schedule in the nation by USA Today, and we won 10 games, and add Tennessee on top of that.
And you know who played for Virginia? You remember who played for Virginia?
Well, you had
Was it
Aaron.
yeah, how about Ron? Wasn't would the Barber still play Rodney
They had
Barber?
left. They left.
No, they were the year before.
Anthony Poindexter was there. Aaron
Yeah.
Brooks was there. They had that great running back. Crowell was there. Was first round pick. They had a running back play for the Jets. Was a first round pick. They had a great team that year.
Yeah,
Like
we had
a great team, Coach. So that to open that season up on the road against Virginia, and then having that SEC schedule that we had, because like I said, like La Tech won 18 games that year. UCF had Dante Culpepper, so we never had a game that we say, okay, we can go out and win
right.
easy. So and then the other thing that I thought affected us that season, and for me, I can't speak for my teammates, but we had 9 straight weeks without an off week. So once we got to Mississippi State, I was exhausted.
Yeah, I
And then we
remember.
got the off week, and then we was able to get some rest. And then we came back, reset, refocused, and to finish the season off with 2 big wins versus Georgia and Alabama. But yeah, that was a great season. To get 10 wins out that schedule was phenomenal. We worked hard. We came together. Me and Takeo Spikes, we had lunch about 2 weeks ago, and he was the leader on defense. I was the leader on offense.
Right.
But we was just talking about these stories, man. We go back and we talk about all these things and how the season went. We can go back to '96. We was the first overtime game, right? And he came up to me during the game and he was like, "Hey, man, if y'all score right here, y'all got to go for 2." He said, "We shot, man. We don't have nothing left." I said, "I
He
got
was,
you." I said, "So if we can score, we're gonna go for 2." And then the next week, people don't realize this. So Georgia played Ole Miss. We played Alabama, and both teams lost in the fourth quarter because we had over 99 snaps that game. It affected you in the fourth quarter because you had
oh
dead
yeah.
legs. So many great memories, Coach.
Yeah, that was good. The Georgia game you're talking about was the first year of overtimes in college football, and they scored on the last play of the game to take it to 4 overtimes. We've talked about that some in our past podcast about the fumble the quarterback had,
He picked the ball up, Coach.
yeah, picked the
Dorsey,
ball up and ran off
Charles
the
Dorsey picked the ball
sideline.
up, ran down the
Yeah,
sideline. They
and
stopped the clock.
they stopped the clock to put
Yeah,
it back down. They killed the
reset it.
ball and threw one more set. That said, holy cow! Anything could happen, I guess, when that happens. But a little bit about what I remember about your career and as I had to be a head coach and know how to handle talent or how to get the most out of our team. I think if there was portal transfer, I might have lost you early. You came in and redshirted, and then and then Pat Nix had a couple of years, and Pat did a great job. What a great Auburn man.
Yeah,
He was a
great Auburn
great
man.
leader, but you had the talent. And I had to find a way to get you in the game.
Yeah.
I said, we didn't have portal transfers or NIL back then either, and you were an Auburn guy, pretty solid. But and in looking back, I said, for a dumb coach, that's the smartest thing I ever did. We developed an entire short yardage goal line offense for you. We
Yes,
had,
sir.
and it would anytime we got into a short yardage or goal line offense. And back then we weren't running hurry up offense. We weren't quite, and this was our 93, 90, 94, 95,
94.
but
Yeah, 94,
94,
95.
94, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
94. And we weren't running the hurry up, four wide out, no huddle like Charlie Ward. But what we would do is if we got to short yards or goal line, boom, our short yards goal line team would run in there, and you'd go in at quarterback and run the offense. And that way we could run our famous belly wham play, or
Yeah.
you could neck it or roll out off of the play. And we got a lot of mileage out of that, but it kept but you know what? It kept you in the game because
It did.
I'm not sure nowadays. I mean, you look at what's to offer out there. It'd have been hard keeping teams
You,
off of
you,
your
you,
phone.
you know what, Coach?
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot. So I don't know if you remember this because I know
Mhm.
you had a lot of heat. Because I looking back on it, I was pretty good, Ronnie.
Yeah.
So coming in, we go through the spring, and like we said, we live. So coach feeling the heat, and like, how am I going? This we got to get this confidence going. You want your team to be the best they can be, and
Right.
theoretically, Patrick should be the starter. He's been there, he's experienced, whatever. So he said the first spring game, he said the ones against the twos, Ronnie.
I remember. I don't.
So I take the twos and beat
Yeah.
the ones.
No. That's what I'm going. No. Don't. I remember that.
And won the MVP back-to-back years. But I'm gonna tell you, Coach Bowden, I'm serious about this. If I see Patrick right now, and I tell people I always defer to the guys before me. If somebody
Yeah.
say who's the best quarterback, I'm going to say Stan. I'm going to say Patrick because I respect those guys. And I tell people this all the time. Patrick was such a great human being, Coach,
Yeah. Yes.
that I was learning on the job because in my mind, me and Coach Fisher had a conversation early on in my career. I don't know if you remember this. It was my first summer practice. We had a scrimmage,
Yeah.
and when you call Waggle right, okay, you remember Waggle right.
Oh yeah. So that was all. Yeah. Waggle always went there.
So the fullback in the flat, wide open. I take the ball, Ronnie. I keep it. I cut across field, and I literally run 75 yards for a touchdown. Walking end zone. And I'm running back, and Jimbo looking at me. He said, "Damien, what you doing?" I said, "Nothing, 'cause I just ran a touchdown." He said, "Well, where's Reed?" I said, "The fullback." He said, "Was he open?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why didn't you throw it to him?" I said, "Coach, I figured I could get more yards than the fullback." This is a true story, Coach. I said, "I figured I can get more yards than the fullback." He looked me right in my eyes. He said, "Damien, if you want to be a great quarterback, you beat him with your head first and your leg second." And I swear to God, I never forgot that. Now, this is my first scrimmage at Auburn University. And I tell my players that, and I say, this day and age, if you tell one of your players that, they're gonna look at you like you crazy, like, man, what are you talking about, man? I just scored a 75-yard touchdown. But I was always able to look at the big picture as a player. And me playing behind Patrick, learning from him because it was always something I could pull for him, his leadership skills, his preparation, the way his competitiveness, his toughness. And I can add that part to my game to be
Yeah.
the best player that I could be. And I just appreciate that. So he was a great mentor for me, my time there, and I was all Auburn, and I still am.
It's so funny because when you get the relationship that you and I and Jimbo had, you got to understand, I was the only coach he had ever had. I had him out of high
Mm.
school. I coached him as a quarterback, and then he trained with me as a head coach, I would coach quarterbacks, and I told everybody, all my quarterbacks, I would say, listen, I can teach you when to throw it, where to throw it, why to throw it, but I cannot teach you how to throw it. If you don't know how to throw it by the time you're with me, I don't need to have you, but I can tell you all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But here's my Jimbo Fisher story of how he reacted different than you did. We were beating a team, and he was at Salem with me, and we just needed to run the clock out, so we ran the a little dive option where we called the dive, but then if the quarterback kept out, he would pitch. So I said, Dembo, we got the game won. Don't hand the dive off. Just run down the line, keep it, and stick your nose up in there. Get what you can, um, um, and we'll get in the game. So we run the play. He goes down the line, pitches it for about a 70-yard touchdown. Pitches it, and I come off the field. I said, Damien, I told you to dadgum run it up the middle. He said, Coach, I like my play better than yours. And so that was a little bit of Jim. Of course, you worked with Jimbo, and you know Jimbo is about as much as I do. And he get very gifted football knowledge guy. One thing
Hmm.
about Jimbo, I recognize guys like you loved the game. I mean, I would have thought you'd have been a heck of a dadgum video football player. You loved just playing the game, and Jimbo. I very much loved playing the game, and then had a passion, had the passion for it that you did. But I want to mention one thing. I think I told you about this years ago when I went to Akron, and I was, and that's after I spent 10 years in broadcasting. I went to ABC in New York after Auburn. Then I went to Akron, and at Akron we were 30 minutes from Canton, Ohio, which is where the NFL Hall of Fame is. And so on Friday nights with recruits, we would take our recruits down, and we would be able to eat dinner in the Hall of Fame. They'd set a table up, and we'd have a dinner. Then they could tour at the Hall of Fame, and I love it because I was a big head coach, and I got to take all my team through the Hall of Fame, and so I'm taking them all through there. Most of these people they'd never heard of, And we get to the one section, and there's you in the Hall of Fame, and your jersey and your name.
Yeah.
And I look, I said that there's, and I didn't know it was in there. I said, look at there, 600. I want to say 611 yards, and you passed for
Yes, sir.
611 yards
Yeah.
back when the NFL owned the Europe team. I think you were playing for the
Hmm.
uh,
Scottish Claymores.
the Scottish team, and y'all beat Germany or somebody, Galaxy or
Frankfurt
Frankfurt.
Galaxy.
You know,
Hmm.
and how do you throw for six? I mean, in one game, did y'all throw it every down, or do you
No,
just?
coach, this what happened. So, my football IQ was pretty high
Yeah,
after, coming from high school and being around you guys.
right.
I learned so much football. So when I got over there, instead of going out, I would spend so much time watching film with the coaches. And they got to the point where they were so comfortable, I could help with the install. I was checking protections. And so the week before, we played Willie Whitehead team, Barcelona,
Hmm.
and they beat us like on the last minute plays. He sacked me. He actually sacked me, and I fumbled, and he was celebrating and broke his foot. And I jammed my hand uh, between two helmets. It was to the point where my hand was so swollen I couldn't grip the ball. So before the game, the head coach was watching me throw the ball. I couldn't hit the side of the barn because my hand was like
Yeah,
swollen up, couldn't grip it, and the ball was everywhere. So they go in the locker room. I'm like, man, I can't do. I can't feel it. They shot my hand up, right, whatever. And we come back out. So and in Europe, you can't blitz to the three tech. You only had to blitz to the shade, right?
yeah,
And while I was over there, I was talking to the coaches. I said, well, if they're gonna do that, we run a jet protection with a 6-man slide protection. I was like, hey, let me just always send it back to the shade. And I said, we always pick it up. He looked at me, he said, huh? I was like, yeah, just let me check the protections to the shade every time we'll pick it up. He said, we never thought of that. I said, okay, cool. So they started off doing that. Boom, boom, we got it picked up. So if it was press anything, I'm giving them signals. If it was a 3-step, I give them a fade. If it was a 5-step, I give them a go anytime I had one-on-one. Because I felt they had bad corners. One of them was Champ Bailey, brother, by the way, played at Georgia. And so so then we they started cheating because they started bringing 7. They actually started bringing 0. But we only threw the ball, I think it was 38 times. And I had 300 yards in the first half, another 300 in the second half.
gee, man.
And Jake DeLone, it was so funny because Jake DeLone was on the other team. When I ended up leaving Carolina, he came in and he came up to me after the game. He was like, congratulations. Congratulations, Damien. I'm like, what? He said, man, you just threw for 600 yards. I'm like, I didn't throw for no 600 yards, man. I was like, come on. He's like, no, 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 you threw for 600 yards. I was like, no, I didn't. I don't believe that. Look at the stats, 611 yards. It was unbelievable, 5 touchdowns. So I had a great season. End up throwing for 2,998 yards in 10 games. So they had the same philosophy you had, coach. Just put it in my hands. In 10 games. So I was on the street, coach, throwing back-to-back 3,000 yard seasons. So it was just so funny because I was so advanced in the pass game and understanding coverages and protections and where to go with the ball.
Yeah,
But I don't get a lot of credit for that because people think, oh man, because what they said per se dual threat quarterback. But I was, threw the ball and had much production as anybody. And by the way, coach, they sent out this video at Auburn. I was got on my boy Jairus McIntyre down there, and it was like the '90s memories, right? And I wasn't on it. It was a little guy on there, number 16, dance. I'm like, well, they must have thought that was me, but it wasn't. So Jairus called me. He said, man, I told them boys, man, they didn't put you on the video. I said, they thought that was me. He was like, yeah, they thought that was you. I said, Jairus. I said, listen. I said, who accounted for the most touchdowns in Auburn history? And he was saying, messing around. He said, you. I said, no, just who you think it was? He said, no, I think it was you. I said, okay, first of all, it's Pat Sullivan. I said, I think 71 touchdowns. I said, you know who number 2? I said, me, 58 touchdowns. And I said, that's not counting the 4 touchdowns in the bowl game. I say, I was the 90s Jairus. And I said, I wasn't on the video.
But don't feel bad. I don't know how many Auburn highlights I've seen. I think every coach is on there but me, so I can live with it. Hey, you know what? I decided in life I was born to be the distant second best coach in my own family, and Tommy would say the third best.
No, second. You the second, coach. He third, coach. You did it in the SEC, coach.
But anyway, listen, so good having you again. We might mention you're with Del McGee, Auburn, another Auburn man at Georgia State, trying to get that program turned around. All the best luck there and in the future. And so great to talk to you again, and it's so great to be back and be a part of Auburn. A lot of the reason I wasn't here was that I coached till I'm 70. You know, Coach Dye really quit coaching at 52 years old. I just turned 70. I coached till I was 68, and did broadcasting in the middle of that. And when you're somewhere else on Saturdays, you can't come here. And and the other thing is too, when people say, well, why don't you go on your off week? You know what? Hey, can you imagine being at a school where you got to win a game, and during the off week you're in the middle of the field at Auburn? You can't do it. It's just you hate the team that you're with would kill you if you did that. But anyway, you understand that. But listen, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you, and have a great spring.
Thank you. Anytime, Coach.
Thank you, Damien.
All right.
Thank you. Now, Dameyune Craig again. People, what a great player and great coach. And in Damien, and he mentioned it, coaches' decisions are not always made simply, okay, this guy's better than that guy, this guy's more talented than that guy. And you got to understand, every time he would go into a spring game or a scrimmage, he would be the best quarterback on the field. Pat Nix was not going to beat him physically looking like a quarterback. But as a head coach, you're trying to do the best thing for your team, and you're hoping you don't ruin the other player. And I think as Damien becomes a father and a head coach and looks back on football and what kind of impact that made in his life, probably having to sit through that and go through that, I hope, made him a better coach and a better understanding. Because I used to worry about, okay, I've got the quarterback that threw the winning pass against Alabama. He threw the winning pass against Florida in '94, and I'm going to bench him for the young quarterback that's coming up. And believe me, it wasn't an easy decision. But back then, it was more common to wait you kind of waited your turn. You set the bench, and my dad had Brad Johnson, the great quarterback at Florida State, won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. He played 1 year. He sat behind quarterbacks for 4 years at Florida State, and I was kind of a part of that mentality that you say you look at the seniority, but there was no question who was the most dynamic quarterback, and that's Dameyune Craig, and still one of the great ones to play at Auburn, and you can tell by his knowledge of the game of how knowledgeable he was of his of his football.
Yeah, there's no question. He was a great player, and engaging in the locker room. Players loved him. And one thing I meant to ask Damien about while he was on was the '97 Peach Bowl. We were down 17-6, if I remember correctly. Late.
Oh yeah.
And Jimbo called him out a little bit. Do you remember that game?
I remember that game. We weren't. I thought both teams were playing lousy. Both teams were not playing very good. It was an ugly game, and I also remember because my son TJ, who's adopted, he was born in California, was born during the game, and we got a phone call, and my wife did during the game, and her and her mother, they left the game to fly to California. And so I'll remember my son was born. But in that game, neither team was playing that good. But Dameyune Craig got hot, made a couple of big plays at the end, and we beat Clemson. Beat Clemson to go 10-3 and win the Chick-fil-A Bowl or the Peach Bowl. I'm not sure. I think it was whatever it was. But I think that the thing that Dameyune did not mention, and I alluded to it, was that when we played for the SEC championship, Tennessee had its best team. I mean, the next year they won the championship, they weren't as good. Peyton Manning's senior year, they had an unbelievable football team, maybe 10 guys drafted, and we should have beaten them. We lost 30-29. We were winning going into the fourth quarter. He hit a little hitch pass to Peerless Price. I think it was Peerless Price. And he made a guy miss a tackle and went about 60 yards for a touchdown. But then we're driving for a score. A field goal would have won it. And I want to say Dameyune threw another completion to Karsten Bailey. Was it? And he fumbled, I believe, and we lost the ball at the end of the game, or we would have kicked a field goal and beaten Tennessee for the SEC championship. And but that's how tight games are and how difficult it is in those things. But anyway, so glad to have Dameyune, and we've got a little bit of time left. I know we didn't start the show. We're doing live today, so you're getting us live, and we don't want to go too long. But I thought we'd talk a little bit about the big news at Auburn. Is their decision, or at least the vote coming up by the Board of Trustees, to do a $350 million improvement on the stadium. And I think right now there's waiting for the last vote. I think if they haven't got it yet, I don't know that it's passed yet or not.
Yeah,
but I think it will.
I think I believe the vote is Friday, and $323 million to the north end zone. And that north end zone complex will be phenomenal. 7 stories. And it'll open up into campus. There's been an issue with that end zone for a while.
Right.
So they're getting the drainage issue fixed or whatever it is they needed to do. But it should be a phenomenal facility, and it'll be one thing I think that Auburn has needed to do over time, and this will do, is bring the campus into Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Right.
And so you can have events there. It should be you'll have suites and all sorts of things. So it should be a great facility.
And I think it's time. You either make a statement or you don't. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. You're never standing still. I can remember, and I think it came mostly while I was in broadcasting after I left Auburn. Alabama, if you remember, after Bear Bryant, they went through Perkins, they went through Curry, they went through Francione. Even though they went with Gene Stallings won, he was that was an uncomfortable situation. He left after 4 years. Francione left. Mike Price left. Shula left. And now I'm in broadcasting, and now I'm evaluating as a broadcaster, as an analyst, and I'll never forget. And this is the way Auburn should be and is. They'd just gone through 5 or 6 disappointing coaches. They were losing ball games. They weren't filling up the stadium at home games. So what was their answer? Their answer was, put 10,000 more seats in there and pay twice as much for another head coach. And that's exactly what they did, and that's when Nick Saban came in. Well, Alex Golesh is the right coach. This is the right time. He's the right coach. It's the right time. And not to do things like this it's not respectful of who Auburn is. That's who Auburn is. That's who Auburn is, and that's who Auburn expects to be. And when I went to those games last year, as Dameyune said, got to come back, and it was a fifth of some tough years, and yet the fans were. I have never seen fans more loyal, more into it. A wilder home field a game. Georgia I watched, and then the game against the 1AA team from Georgia, Mercer. I went to both those games, and I had not been to games before since I had left, but. What Auburn is doing is taking their stadium and their program where they have always expected it, to have the very best. And you and I toured the facilities a couple of weeks ago. They're second to none, and they're not finished yet. They're working on a kitchen. They're working on this. They're working on that. But you can see from the structure that they have planned to be as good, if not better, than anybody in the facility, and with the stadium, they've recognized it. And I'm saying is, well, I wonder if this is the year it's going to do it. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's the year that's going to do it. Alex Golich brings in the one thing that a coach, if they have that, everything else has a chance, and that's work ethic. If they have work ethic, everything else has a chance to work. I've always said to my coaches, if we'll work hard and we'll work together, we may not have the best answer to every question, but what answer we do have will work until we find the best answer if we will work hard together. And I think that's the thing that they're doing right now. They are totally committed to being blue collar, to paying the price. And so I think it all kind of goes together. And so again, I look at all the improvements. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around $323 million or $350 million, and like, okay, where does that come from? But it's they have these bonds they do, and they donations they make, and it's they know how to do it, I guess, to pay that kind of money.
And especially after spending $100 million on a basketball arena and $100 million
That's right.
football facility. And
yeah, I mean, and the money that's been put into that, and then look at it, and this, I mean, then look at NILs and what that's done, and even the increase in salaries and things like that. Florida State down there has had some terrible situation too. They're not winning, and they could not make any move with their coaching staff. Not that I believe they should, or not that I said that they should. Whether I believe it or not, I'm not going to say. But they couldn't do it because they couldn't afford to. They did the same thing that's Auburn doing, but they don't have any money left. They don't have anything left, and they can't pay a coach off $50 or $60 million. I don't think anybody ever wants to do that, but they've had two pretty disastrous seasons at FSU. And, my dad's name is on that field, and I want them to do well. Just like my dad's name's on the Sanford field, and I want Sanford to do well. In fact, I just noticed, I don't know about a month ago, Tallahassee renamed their international airport the Bobby Bowden International Airport. Yeah, Damien was second best in my own family, Damien. That's I've lived with that all my life. But again, I think just going back to our stadium, I think it's going to be fantastic, and it's for the Auburn family, the young people of Auburn the future of Auburn is going to see that, and that's what's going to be. That's what it's going to be for where Auburn is going.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's going to be a phenomenal facility. And I think we should give John Cohen credit. This is something that Auburn has been trying to get, the athletic director. This is something Auburn's been trying to get done for a long time. And Cohen has a master plan, and this is part of the master plan. And I think Auburn people finally are excited. New scoreboard last year in the north end zone, which had been there since 1987, I believe. And now we've got the north end zone expansion coming.
That's good, and it's going to be great when it's completed. It's going to be an unbelievable home field, and I will say this: when it all gets completed, and we're playing our home games with all that facility and all those things, let's don't move any games to Atlanta after that. Let's keep them all. Let's keep them all here. We're putting that much money into the home field stadium. Let's utilize it all 6 or 7 games or however many that is. But and again, we should say we don't have. We know that there was a lot of financial things built into that decision, probably, and all those kind of things that ADs have to. It's like Damien was talking about my decision to play one quarterback or to make one decision. It ain't always. You don't know that it's always the best. It's the one you feel like you got to make under the circumstances. And sometimes it's the best, sometimes it's not. But anyway, good about the stadium. I'm excited to see that. I'll be in Auburn a good bit this year, doing our podcast and working there with Tom Haley and the Haley his Tiger Communications Network. We're in the process of planning to do some more things working with Tom Haley. And of course, with my mother being in Auburn, I'll find time to spend more time there, especially since, as I told our listeners last week, I'm going to be tied up this summer as the new head coach of the Monroe, and it's not Monroe, it's Monroe. We live in Monroe Greenheads, the new head coach of the arena team. I am the new head coach of the Monroe Greenheads.
Now, for those who don't know, a greenhead is a duck, correct?
A greenhead is not just a duck, it's a mallard duck with a green head. And you can't have a team that their mascot is a duck in Monroe unless you play tribute to the Robertsons in Duck Dynasty. That's why I've got this beard going. It's not where Willie Robertson's beard is, but it's the best I can do in my life. I've never had a beard like this. And and I want to say, for any of those people that want to trek over here to Monroe to watch an arena football game this summer, our fans will not have cowbells in the stands. They'll have duck calls. They'll have duck calls in the stand. And there's only one thing more obnoxious than a cowbell. That's a duck call.
Duck call.
So there will be duck calls in the stands for all of our fans for that. But that's it. But I will be the head coach here. It's May 30th through like the end of July. And I'll be doing that from here in Monroe, and then should be ready to do the broadcasting and podcasting full time. We'll continue to do our show all through this summer, but I will also be coaching some young men in arena football. Look, it's really got to be. I know we want to win, and we're going to try to go out there and win ball games, but it just seems like it'd be a lot of fun. That's what I watch, those Savannah Bananas. You see that on you see that on TV a lot now, and they are having so much fun, and they're good players. Mm-hmm. They have talent, but they're having fun, and they're selling out arenas all over the country. Reminds me of the Harlem. You remember the Harlem Globetrotters? I think I saw them 2 or 3 times as a young child. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, but that's the way they do this, the Savannah Bananas and all those other teams. So I imagine, and we're going to try to do some of the same things in our arena league in Monroe, but I'm looking forward to that. But anyway.
And for those who joined us today, thank you. And click like and subscribe below. It really helps us out, keeps us in your feed. And we will see you again next week.
We'll see you again. Thank you. The Haley Red Family Foundation, who supports this program, we thank you so much. And we'll see you again next week. War Eagle.
For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.